Trump is ranting in New York City after appealing his defamation verdict against a woman a jury determined he had assaulted. He's still talking about this?
And yesterday they're bringing up Russia, Russia, Russia again, that they've done for years. Never found anything. But they should be looking at China, 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 Iran, 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 and lots of other places.
I really feel like, if anything, we understate the extent to which he's mentally cooked. You know what I mean? He's a little bit more energetic than Biden, but in terms of his ability to string a sentence together, it's actually quite a bit worse than Biden's in many cases. He just has energy. He still has energy that he projects into the sentence that makes no sense.
I haven't spoken to anybody from Russia in years. They know that, but it's a scam. But it all goes back.
Trump claims he never met Jean Carroll, despite there being a photograph of them together.
Of a ridiculous verdict of a woman I have never met. I don't know. I have no idea who she is. She wrote a book and she made
hold on. And in what context is he bringing this up again? Is this because the ruling or the sentencing was deferred from that case? Okay, the most recent headline that I see is Trump's New York hush money sentencing delayed until after the November election because, you know, we live in a two-tier justice system. But this is about the hush money payments, not about Jean Carroll. He's just bringing up out of nowhere for no reason. Like there's no news that's prompting this. He just decided to talk about him being a convicted. Okay, for fun.
Ridiculous story up. She put it in her book, and we're now appealing the decision. We had an extremely hostile judge appointed by.
He was in court today for an appeal of that verdict. Okay, there we go.
By Clinton, very good friends of Clinton. I guess he married, presided over the marriage ceremony of one of the lawyers on the case against us.
Yeah, that's true. Trump was more associated with the Clintons than...
They had two witnesses. And before I start, I have no idea who this woman is. They have a picture from, they say, about 40 years ago.
It's so cool how this country is so cooked that we are up for a nail-biter of an election when one of the two candidates is politically competent and running an energized campaign, and the other two is genuinely a pedophile rapist retard with no redeeming qualities, who can't string a sentence together, and who drips with contempt for life every time he talks. It's genuinely remarkable that this is the nail-biter that we get, you know? Love this country. Don't forget fascist? No, I left fascist out for a reason. There are lots of people who are ideologically fascist. A fascist can win if they give a good message. But, like, in terms of messaging, Trump is infinitely less competent politically than people like Le Pen or Meloni or even the AfD. All groups that are less obviously evil than Trump and the GOP is in many cases, you know? Like, it's remarkable.
A picture, and the picture depicts her and her husband on a celebrity line where I was the celebrity. I was been a celebrity for a long time, and they were shaking my hands along with hundreds of other people. Nobody even knows where it is. The problem is she doesn't know the date of this incident. She doesn't know when. She doesn't know, was it in the 90s? Could it have been further than that?
Please don't put Meloni in this. I hate her so much. Does she talk like this? No. No, this is crazy. It's insane. Like, he can't talk. No one understands what he's saying.
There's no idea when. And people do that because you don't want to give a specific date, and then you find out that Trump or whoever it was in Europe. So they tend to do that. They take long periods so that this way, hopefully he was in New York.
Does anyone even know what he's talking about? I understand the general subject, okay? You don't need to patronize me. But the actual sentence structure doesn't make any sense. Okay, you want to see rambling? We'll do the bit. Look at this. Behold. Get ready, okay? Trump was, what was this, a New York City business conference? It's a whole damn thing. Look at this. Please listen to him, okay? People have been writing down transcripts of this.
Mr. President.
Hi, John.
First, let me thank you for your presentation today. President Trump, in the last fiscal year, the fiscal deficit under the Biden administration was approximately $2 trillion. Under the policies you've announced, the deficit would come down from items such as increased revenues from tariffs, as well as eliminating the tax incentives for the Green New Deal. These gains would be mitigated by decreases in revenues from policies such as no tax on tips. Overall, what do you estimate will be the impact of the fiscal deficit from your policies?
Well, we just hit record highs at...
Okay. Everyone get ready for this. And just try to follow along.
We just hit record highs at numbers that nobody ever thought possible. You're right, it's over $2 trillion. Nobody thought that was a number that was... I mean, you can go back 4 years. Nobody thought a number like that would be possible. It's crazy. It's like... It's just horrible, actually. But, yeah, we're $2 trillion, and I view it as profit and loss to a certain extent. A lot of people say, oh, it's trade. You know, you have many people say trade deficits don't matter. I think they matter a lot. I think they matter a lot. We're going to have tremendous growth. What I'm talking about is all about growth. The tax is relatively minor compared to the growth. We're going to make our money back on growth. We're going to also, I mean, we're going to grow like nobody's ever grown before. I think if this all works out, you're going to have the auto industry come back to America. Right now, China is building 2 auto factories in Mexico, massive auto factories.
This is a point that I've seen discussed a bit lately, and I think it's worth reiterating, even though it puts me a little bit closer to a resist lib than I would like to be. I think that there has been widespread media malpractice in that people have not discussed enough how mentally cooked Donald Trump is. It's not just him being idiosyncratic. It's not just him being funny or playing to the crowd. I get all those things. I don't fault Donald Trump. I'm not stupid enough to think that Donald Trump being frivolous or facetious are him being mentally cooked. I understand that he has a certain communication style that when he's in his element can be quite captivating. This is not just that. He genuinely has no idea what he's saying, and it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, sane washing in a way, like they try to like pan over it, or they describe this as like a confused answer. This is a sundowning answer. This is mental incompetence. It's not just a presentational style. He doesn't know what he's talking about. On like an informational level, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And on a delivery level, he can't hold a sentence together. There's actually a clip worse than this. The childcare one. We'll look at that after.
And they think they're going to make their cars in Mexico and send them back into the United States with no tax. It's not going to happen. Under this administration, it's going to happen. And they wanted to do that during my administration. I said, if you do it, we're going to put a 200% tariff on every car, and you'll never be able to see it. There will never be one car coming across our border. And if I would have let them do it, we would have had these 2 factories. Well, now they're building massive factories, more than 2, and they're going to kill Detroit. And the head of the union, the United Auto Workers in Detroit, has done a terrible...
He's always been incoherent, Vosh, you know that? No, I disagree. I think he's gotten substantially worse, and I think the reason why we haven't really paid much attention to it is because we've gotten used to how bad he is, so we write it off. It's like, oh, yeah, of course, he's always been crazy. And yeah, obviously, even since 2016, he said ridiculous stuff, but a lot of the ridiculous stuff he said didn't demonstrate mental incompetence. They demonstrated buffoonery. That's very different.
Job, just a terrible job. But we're going to bring tremendous growth back. And remember, we're also taking in a certain percentage. I won't name the percentage today, but it'll be a certain tariff percentage, which will be higher than people had heard in the past. And we will be bringing in...
He's going to win, and he's going to implement a flat 20% tariff on all imported goods, and the economy's going to spiral in 3 days. You guys need to... If he wins, I hope you are stocking up on canned beans because he's gonna just and make sure they're American canned beans too, so that you get used to the flavor of the local brand, because you ain't gonna be able to afford the foreign import beans.
Billions and billions of dollars, which will directly reduce our deficits. Okay, thank you very much. Good job you've done, by the way.
Good job, good job. This one's even worse, okay? Really try to follow this one along. It's so bad that, yeah, the Kamala HQ account is running with it.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, child care is child care. It's, couldn't, you know, there's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including child care, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with child care. I want to stay with child care, but those numbers are...
We're a little more than halfway through. Are we all following along? We're all trying to. You're not just letting this bleed into nothing, right? It's not normal for a presidential candidate to talk in a way that makes it easy for it to just fade into yapping noise.
Small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people, but we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. You get applause for that.
But today was also about Donald Trump's economic speech, and we watched a lot of it. And I would dare any of you to listen to his answer on childcare and tell me what the hell he was talking about.
Can I try to read it on this question on childcare? By the way, in case you're wondering what the Republicans' actual positions were, J.D. Vance was asked about can I get that clip? J.D. Vance was asked about what they would do to lower childcare costs, and his answer was, well, get your grandparents or aunts or uncles to do it. His answer was literally like, the solution to the childcare crisis is have your family members do it for free. Let me try to read the transcript from Donald Trump's question on, or the answer that he had to the childcare question, okay? Let me see. Maybe it'll sound different when I say it, because you're not used to me yapping in that particular fashion. Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kinds of numbers that I'm talking about, because, look, childcare is childcare. You know, there's something you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly, and it's not going to stop them from doing business with us. But they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kinds of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth. But growth is also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's, relatively speaking, not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers that we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people, but we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about Make America Great Again. We have to do it now because we're a failing nation, so we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. That was the whole thing. Did that sound better when I did it? Did that sound more or less coherent? Did it sound the same amount of coherent? Was there a change in... It was actually more coherent. It maybe, like, I'm younger than he is. I'm not slurring my words quite as much, though I do still do that plenty. I don't know. It's crazy, genuinely. She said Chris Hayes had a segment on this, Annie. This is the Vance grandparent clip.
Working family, and it's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
You know, such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways...
I agree he's sundowning, but I think it's clear what he was saying. I mean, what he was saying was, we're going to make money from tariffs, so that's how we'll pay for childcare. But that's not an answer to the question. The question was, how will you expand childcare? Not, are you going to make money bigly?
That you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that you know, maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens,
that's a great policy proposal, man. Thank you. Thank you.
You relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare. Now,
that's what we're trying to do? Relieve pressure of the resources we're spending on daycare? We're trying to, like, lower the amount we're relying on daycare? That's what we need to do? This guy hears about, like, the daycare crisis, and his thought is like, oh yeah, of course, we need to use it less. It's too accessible right now.
Talk about just daycare. Let's say you don't have somebody.
Again, it's going to be a nail biter of an election when these guys are so obviously evil and incompetent. Like, any parent in the country, child care costs are like a serious issue. And then you've got tens of millions of Americans who are gonna vote for this when these guys, they're not just like attacking immigrants or whatever. I don't think being a fascist is necessarily like an electoral handicap. Lots of people are fascists and easily motivated by fear. But these guys aren't just fascists. They're stupid, and they openly oppose things that everyone relies on. No one is anti-child care, not like a meaningful demographic of the electorate, not in like a direct way. Like, you get weirdo incels online, or like austerity freaks or libertarians, I guess, but for the most part, not really.
Who can provide that extra set of hands. What we've got to do is actually empower people to get trained in the skills that they need for the 21st century. We've got a lot of people who love kids, who would love to take care of kids, but they can't, either because they don't have access to the education that they need, or maybe more importantly, because the state government says you're not allowed to take care of children unless you have some ridiculous certification that has nothing to do.
This is the anti-grooming party, by the way. That's the two policy proposals, okay? Get your grandparents to help, and also let Doug, with Doug's Children Play Center, you know, he runs it out of his backyard. Let him take care of your kids.
Nothing to do with taking care of kids. So empower people to get the skills they need. Don't force every early child care specialist to go and get a 6-year college degree where they've got a whole lot of...
I don't think that's a thing. I'm pretty sure you don't need a master's degree to run a daycare. I don't think that's true. What the f is he even talking about? He's suggesting that deregulating the childcare industry is the way to make it less expensive, which is like an incomprehensibly psychotic attitude to have. Can you imagine being a mother and hearing this? Like, oh yeah, we're barely able to keep afloat because of childcare costs. That's what we need. We need to lower the standards of childcare. That's great, man.
Of debt, and Americans are much poorer because they're paying out the wazoo for daycare. Empower working families, empower people who want to do these things for a living, and that's what we got to do.
I mean, it's ideologically consistent, right? Replace literally every system that makes people's lives better with more, like, deregulate, you know, more bootstraps rhetoric, more, oh, well, maybe you wouldn't be paying as much if we lowered the standards. I know corporations are experiencing like record windfall profits, but why would we engage in any policy that translates that incredible wealth into betterment for the average person? Oh, I know we pretend to be economically populist when we talk about giving power back to the working class. We actually hate you in like the most obvious way possible.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We've got some breaking news tonight, an exclusive all-in...
Did Chris Hayes always look this much like he's currently suffering from an allergy attack? Does he always look this much like that's the case? I feel like it's been a little while since I've seen him. Yeah? Okay.
In scoop. It's this. Donald Trump is 78 years old. Did you know that? If elected, he will be the oldest person to ever be sworn in as President of the United States. He is a man that is suffering from, I think, pretty obvious mental decline. But in contrast to the breathless coverage of Joe Biden's age and fitness, which, again, made a certain amount of sense, prior to his dropping out of the presidential race, we are not seeing nearly as much discussion about Trump's diminished mental acuity.
That's true. I do genuinely think it's media malpractice, 100%. And I also do think that Joe Biden is more mentally present than Donald Trump. I just think that Joe Biden is much more like visibly and audibly old. You know, he comes across more old. But when he gets his shit together and talks, for the most part, he sounds like he's making sense. Trump never does. Ever.
When was the last time you read an article wondering if Trump was mentally fit to be president of the United States? It is simply...
The media wants Trump to win? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, fully. If you remember all of the, like, fact-checking sites, like PolitiFact or whatever, and they were like, technically, when Kamala Harris says that Trump wants to enact a Project 2025 agenda, Trump denies that he wants to, so, false.
Not leading the coverage of this race as it was with Biden 2 months ago. Seems like everyone's grading Trump on a curve. He has always been rambling incoherent, true, so he gets a pass.
I said this. Did you watch my segment from 5 minutes ago before making this video 18 hours ago?
Amount of time listening to him these days, and for our sins we do here at All In, he does not sound like a person who should be anywhere near the nuclear codes.
The transgender thing is incredible. Think of it. Your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. The school decides what's going to happen with your child.
That's true. That's real. The kids are just losing their dicks at schools, you know? And just, they're falling off. Where are they all going? They're going to China.
And, you know, many of these childs 15 years later say, what the hell happened? Who did this to me? The real radicals on that issue are the Democrats, where you can have an abortion in the 9th month, and in 6 states, you're allowed to kill the baby after the baby is born. The execute.
This is another one of those things sometimes that makes me feel like I'm in Crazyville, that we are in an environment where Republicans can just say this, and there's basically no pushback at all. Like, even when Trump or Republican officials do interviews with non-right-wing media figures, they're not just like, hey, can you tell me in which states this is legal? Can you tell me in which specific states is that legal? Can you explain to me exactly which states those are legal? You've said in these states they're legal. Can you tell me exactly where it's legal to do that? You know? But they don't do it.
6 states, you're allowed to kill the baby after the baby is born. The execution of a baby, because that's not abortion, that's the execution of a baby. You could actually...
They think, the Republicans think that's real. It's a liberal thing. They think it's so obvious that it's wrong that they don't have to explicitly say anything. Yeah, genuinely. It's like liberal arrogance, you know? They forget what their job is. It's like beneath them to fact check on stuff like this, or to push back against it.
Execute the baby after birth. The wind, it kills our birds. If you want to see a bird cemetery, go under a windmill sometime. They do kill a hell of a lot of birds. Why do they love it? It kills all the birds.
Now, these are all obvious and transparent lies. I don't think any serious person believes any of that. Like, You drop your kid off at school at 8:30 in the morning and then pick them up at 2:30, and they've had gender-affirming surgery in the school that day?
Well, that's what the woke left wants, of course, but we haven't gotten there quite yet. I mean, if people genuinely believe abortion after birth is a real thing, Democrat counter-arguments are going to fall on deaf ears. It's a waste of energy. This is one of the very, like, real examples of debate being a good thing. Like, direct confrontation is obviously where you need to be. They sit down for an interview, you ask them directly, hey, you told a lie. Can you tell me where you got that information from? Can you tell me, like, can you substantiate that? You said that wind turbines are killing birds. How many birds? You say they're killing a lot of birds. Can you tell me how many birds they're killing? Like any of this. You have to push back against it. J.D. Vance is away that strange views on children. You know, J.D. Vance follows the Holocaust-denying historian who was on the Tucker Carlson show. I assume that to be the case. I simply assume that from the get-go. Yeah.